When black folks decide to put money and support behind a young brother who didn't start a fight, who didn't threaten nobody, who was sitting where he could have right to be sitting, was threatened more than one time, was physically attacked, he defends himself, and then all of a sudden he's in jail for murder. But guess what, brother? We gonna stand behind ours like you white folks stand behind yours.
I think he's gonna lose in this trial, and it's gonna cause an upheaval because people are race baiting, meaning that they think it's all about race, and they're not looking at the logical conclusion of fact-based or law-based conclusions.
Prices have been high for the last few years, and they're still high. And sadly, most folks are having to lean on credit cards just to cover their bills. That's why credit card debt is at an all-time high, trapping millions of Americans in a cycle that they feel is impossible to break. But here's the hope. American Financing can help homeowners pay off that high interest debt using your home's equity. They're a family-owned mortgage lender that's been around for 25 years and are licensed in all 50 states. Their mortgage consultants are salary-based, which means that there's no incentive to put you in a loan that don't make sense for you. In fact, customers save an average of $800 a month when they let American Financing help. There's no upfront or hidden fees to find out how much you can save, and you could even close in as fast as 10 days. You may also be able to delay up to 2 mortgage payments, giving you even more savings up front. They've helped hundreds of thousands of homeowners, and their Google review speaks for themselves. All you gotta do is call 866-889-8010. That's 866-889-8010, or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Tatum.
Karmelo Anthony charged as an adult in this case against the young man, Austin Metcalf. Let me just say this real quick before I play this clip. And shout out to Anton. This is his video that we got. We got this from his channel. But let me just make this point real quick. I told y'all from the very beginning that Karmelo Anthony needs to make a plea deal. I do not see how this kid is not found guilty in the court of law based on the statutory requirements. Being charged with murder, first-degree murder, isn't a difficult charge for what transpired in this incident. Now, many defense attorneys will say that they may find him guilty of a lesser charge, which is manslaughter. And manslaughter, he probably spent about 5 years in prison, and that's it. That could be a possibility, but it's not guaranteed. With them charging him as an adult, if he is found guilty on first-degree murder, he is going to do a significant amount of time in prison. Significant. And I do not think this young man was as malicious as life in prison or 40 years in prison. Now you reap what you sow, right? Like I was just telling y'all, you sow good seed, you blessing somebody. You stabbing people and living this lifestyle, it's going to lead you down a path of destruction. Now, in the state of Texas, there is no death penalty for a person his age, so he's not going to get the death penalty. Parole eligibility after 40 years if he is found guilty on first-degree murder. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the case and some of the reasonings behind why he will probably be guilty in this situation, is I'm going to articulate it for you real quick. First-degree murder, there's different levels of murder, right? There's first-degree, which means premeditated murder. There's second-degree, which murder without premeditation. Third-degree murder or manslaughter is a murder that wasn't intentional, but through negligent action, you cause the death of another person. The difference between first and second-degree murder, the difference between premeditation and not premeditation is a very thin line that a lot of people don't understand unless you do this, right? Premeditation is a moment. It can be a split second of pre-planning something that will change you from being murdering somebody spontaneously or through premeditation. Let me give you an example of why Austin Metcalf and the Karmelo Anthony situation is a premeditated murder. When you look at the fact that they were in a confrontation, Karmelo knows he has a knife in the bag, nobody else does. So there's a level of concealment of the knife in the bag that others aren't aware of, and Karmelo is aware of that, and he knows the circumstances. So then when he tells them, touch me and see what happens. Now, if Karmelo was arguing and they get into a scuffle, the stuff get crazy and he stab and he run, that would be a second-degree murder. But when he says immediately out of his mouth, touch me and see what happens, touch me and see what happens. Therefore, they've established that he premeditated. That means that when they touched him, he pre-planned that if they hit me, I'm going to reach in the bag and I'm going to stab the kid in the chest. Knowingly, if you are reasonable to know, if you stab somebody in the chest with a knife, that you are causing serious bodily injury or death to that person. That's called reasonableness. A reasonable person should know if you stab a person in the heart that they may die as a result. So when you look at the totality of circumstances, you say that premeditation was established when he said, touch me and see what happens, touch me and see what happens. And they touched him and he continued down the path of do this and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this, which established premeditation. Now, it wasn't self-defense, and it doesn't appear that it was self-defense. I don't know if it was self-defense, to be honest. I'm not at the court. I didn't see the videos. I don't know what all the evidence they have, and I didn't interview a single witness.
There's a confrontation, and Mr. Anthony apparently stabbed this young man, unfortunately, and he lost his life. This, to me, seems like an open and shut case of self-defense and stand your ground in a stand your ground state, which Texas is.
Whoa.
But hold on.
We were doing okay.
Texas, this happened in a stand your ground state, which says if you feel threatened and afraid, you can defend yourself, which is exactly what Mr. Anthony did. And so I know the right has taken this up as their theme because one guy is white and one guy is black. It's not about any of those things. It's about the fact that the law in that state says that this young man could defend himself if he felt threatened. And certainly if you're by yourself in this tent, surrounded by guys that you don't know, and you get ambushed by those guys, you certainly want to defend yourself. And so that's what I see here.
There's no evidence to suggest he was ambushed by anybody. Here's my question for you. Why would anybody on God's green earth bring a knife to a high school track meet?
Based on the information that we have, it doesn't seem to be self-defense when you have a out, meaning that that people are just verbally asking you to leave. And you couple that not with throwing hands, not with a verbal altercation, but you accelerated your use of force to deadly force, which wasn't what you were combating. You weren't combating deadly force. And so then there's a level of deadly force or use of force or self-defense that has to match what's happening to you. Meaning that if a person slap you in the face, you could punch them back in their face in defense of yourself, right? They slap you and you think you're getting beat up, so you fight back. You can't, somebody yell at you, you can't have it as a self-defense that you stab them to death. And I want people to understand too, that a knife and a gun is the same in the court of law, right? When it comes to whether or not it's a deadly weapon or not. So if you are operating off of a deadly weapon with a deadly weapon and somebody yells at you, you can't use deadly force against that person for yelling at you. And the reason I say they're the same, because if this is no different than you shooting them with a gun. Somebody asks you to leave their tent. No, I'm not leaving that tent. Touch me and see what happened. Touch me and see what happened. They touch him and he shoot him. Boom, 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 boom. Or shoot him once. Boom, right in the face. That's no different than stabbing them. It's no real difference. You use deadly force against somebody whom you claim touched you or argued with you. So I wanted to bring that home and put that in perspective. We could play this clip real quick because didn't Anton have something to say about it? Let's play the clip real quick. It's about 6 minutes, so it's long. I'm not going to play the whole thing. Roll the clip.
Karmelo Anthony is basically being charged for first-degree murder, and he's facing life in prison. They are charging him as an adult. Let me say that one more time. 17-year-old. They're charging him as an adult, and he's facing life in prison, and it's a possibility he won't even get paroled if convicted. If convicted, I want to say that because I do believe in the justice system. If convicted, then he won't even face the possibility of parole until he's about 57 years old. That is 40 years. 40 years. Now, I believe he's already out on bail so that he can prepare his defense. And let me just deep dive into this a little bit, and then we're gonna go into how much money was being raised.
I pretty much said everything Anton is saying, which I respect what he has to say. Y'all can go watch his video on his channel. But I'll add this and then I'm gonna move on. I think it's completely out of control that his defense didn't take a plea deal. because this kid could do a tremendous amount of time in prison. Charged as an adult, potentially 40 years before he can even be eligible for parole. I think he's going to lose in this trial, and it's going to cause an upheaval because people are race baiting, meaning that they think it's all about race, and they're not looking at the logical conclusion of fact-based or law-based conclusions.
To all of the people who are against Karmelo Anthony, me as a black man in America, white people, I'm telling you and I'm telling you now, you ever even think to approach me, bully me, harass me, think you're gonna be with your twin brother or twin whatever, and do anything to me, I too will poke you as well.
Kyle Rittenhouse, after he killed 2 people in cold blood, he raised over $1 million. Wait a minute.
Let's
the
talk
officer
about that.
who killed Michael Brown, he raised almost $2 million. So don't tell me that when black folks decide to put money and support behind a young brother who didn't start a fight, who didn't threaten nobody, who was sitting where he could have right to be sitting, was threatened more than one time, was physically attacked, he defends himself, and then all of a sudden he's in jail for murder. But guess what, brother? We gonna stand behind ours like you white folks stand behind yours.
Okay, let me
that
be
young
clear.
brother was attacked.
I know you're yelling
he defended himself.
because you really get worked up when you're lying.
Bullshit,
But let me say,
of y'all killing
very
us,
clear.
but then it's justified.
Us killing
but
y'all.
we defend ourselves.
Now,
it's murder.
Now, there's a possibility he could be found innocent or not guilty in the court of law, right? He's innocent until proven guilty, so he don't have to be found innocent. He just found not guilty, right? There's a possibility somebody could be racist in the jury and say, I will never convict a 17-year-old black kid, and they could cause it to be a hung jury. There is a possibility for any of these things. We saw OJ, rest his soul, got off on potential murder charges. There's a lot of people that get off that did crimes because, which is the beauty in the mystique of the justice system. Because if you have a solid enough defense, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt against you, which I think that most people would be happy about because you don't want there to be a circumstances where the state can be wrong and you go to jail because your defense is not skilled enough. So in this day and age, you can have defense attorneys that are so skilled that if they catch the prosecution or the state not following laws, constitutional things that are associated with the case, then you can win that case. And Karmelo Anthony's chances of winning is probably 5%. Carmelo's chance of probably getting charged with a lesser included charge is probably 80%. And therefore it leaves about 20% or so, well, not leaves, but it can be, in my opinion, the 20% chance that he gets found completely guilty of everything and do the rest of his life in prison. So all those possibilities on the table, we shall see when the trial comes up. All right.